Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Hospitality Room presented by Mascot Media. I'm Blair Cartwright, joined by Brandon Marcello, who I'm sure you have seen on television or on the internet or wherever. One of the best reporters of college football. Brandon, thanks for taking time. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know about one of the best. I always
Oh,
label myself
now.
as one of the reporters covering college
Yeah.
football.
Okay. No, you definitely one of the best. All right. So we've got a running clock. We've got a lot of questions. Let's get to it. Let's start first talking about your career. Now, when did you know that you wanted to cover college football for a living?
Probably like 1998. I was like an eighth grader. I had just moved to Arkansas. I grew up in southern Mississippi, and we had all kinds of weird allegiances there. There's LSU, Southern Miss, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Alabama, no pro team. So some went with the Saints and everything. So it was just weird. Then I moved up here, and as you know, it's just all Razorbacks all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a different environment. Like everybody was enthralled with it. All my friends and everything. I was like, what? This is different. And so I just kind of got into it from there. And then I started reading the newspaper a lot. And back then we had, man, the morning news of Northwest Arkansas, the Northwest Arkansas Times, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. So you had like all these different writers covering one team. And it just seemed like it was big time to me. It's like I've never seen or heard anything like this before. So I just got like obsessed with it, reading it, and was like, man, this is kind of what I want to do. I wanted to be a meteorologist before
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to go to OU or I'm going to go to Mississippi State, and but I quickly just fell in love with, hey, you know what? I could write, I could do this, and the rest is history.
Wow. So at an early age, did you ever waver at all? I mean, you knew in eighth grade, but did you ever waver, or was it always, this is it?
It was always that, yeah. As soon as I decided, I can't really do math very well in high school, I remember they put me in an AP calculus class along with geometry in the same semester. And I always made A's and B's, but I had to like pretty much beg the teacher to give me a D in AP calculus. And I was like, this solidifies that I'm not cut out to be a meteorologist. I need to continue to pursue this college football dream.
Nice. All right. So you get out of school, and in the first job, managing editor in Nashville, Arkansas, the Nashville News Leader. Did you have, I mean, when you had the dream, did you have any idea that would be the launching point, the first job?
No, but I knew I had to get my start somewhere and do something, and I didn't realize that my first job would be, hey, you need to help manage a paper, a small weekly. We published twice a week in the afternoons. We were an afternoon paper. We had a rival paper pretty much across town from us,
Oh,
that was part of the family, still part of the family, still the Graves family. There was some type of tiff going on. Hopefully it's over with now, but it was hardcore. I mean, you grow up and see media battles in bigger markets, but one in a
mm-hmm.
town of like 5,000, like it was like, yeah, I work for the Graves family. They're like, which side of the Graves family? It
Oh,
was
wow.
very heated down there. But I got to cut my teeth, and one just like covering stuff outside sports. All I did was, city government features, things like that. And then also design and help put the paper together. And then even go in the back to the press and help with the press guys, help get the papers off the press, help them get all loaded up. I'd go load up the papers that had to be mailed to some people outside of our delivery area. So I take that up to Murfreesboro, up to the post office, help deliver papers a couple of times. It was just like a smorgasbord of like, here, this is what a newspaper putting it together every day looks like. And it was very, very beneficial in helping kind of shape who I am today in a lot of ways.
Very nice. And so you go from Nashville, you come back to Northwest Arkansas, started as a government reporter, and then finally get a job in sports with the Northwest Arkansas Times. So how relief was that? Not only you in sports, which you wanted to do, but you're in the market where you grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome. I was down there in Nashville for like 8, 9 months, and a job came open at the Morning News of Northwest Arkansas for a government reporter. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to get back up there somehow, some way. So I did that. Small governments in the Benton County area, I did that. some very interesting news there. And it helped me develop sources and also like filing open records requests and stuff, which you have to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot in sports. And then they only went for like 3 or 4 months. And then the Northwest Arkansas Times called up and said, hey, we have an opening for a sports reporter to do high school sports. And you can help take over this blog called the Slophouse blog that was being left behind by the previous writer, Reiner Saban, who I knew in college. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, absolutely. So I turned in my 2 week notice almost immediately. And then I remember the morning news was like, that's our competitor. We don't want you to be here for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh no. So I called the sports editor, Terry Wood at the Northwest Arkansas Times, and said, can I start tomorrow? And he goes, yes, just come in and we'll do your paperwork. So I just said, okay, how about I leave now? And they said, that's fine. Get out of here. So I went
Wow.
up there and did high school sports, did junior high sports. We covered junior high basketball, junior high
Mm-hmm.
football, and did a little bit of Razorback stuff on the side. I'd almost, people go, so what was that like? I go, I was pretty much like the fifth or sixth string guy on
Mm-hmm.
Razorback stuff, but I did it all online, and it helped me kind of develop sources, and it was fun. When you're younger, you're more willing to like not sleep, and I
Yeah.
just didn't sleep a lot because I was having so much fun back being in sports.
And covering the junior highs, because not a lot of places cover it like they do in Northwest Arkansas. I'm sure that had some benefits to it as well, even though you weren't necessarily doing a lot of the college stuff, but just making connections and whatnot. How beneficial was that?
Oh, certainly. Plus, that 10, 15 years down the road, those kids and their parents still have like those newspaper clippings. And it's nice to
Mm-hmm.
know that like they don't know who you are, maybe, but like you nice to know that you contributed to that's in a scrapbook somewhere. That's a big thing for me. Plus, you have to not say get creative, but you have to be very aware of what's happening in your surroundings at some of these games. Cause I remember covering a junior high girls basketball game. The final score was 3-2 and I had to write like 400 words. How do
Oh
you write
wow.
400 words on a 3-2 game? I found a way to do it, but yeah, it's always about like human interest pieces. And I know I tell people in the industry now, is like, you used to cover junior high basketball. I go, yeah, man. That's like, yeah, everybody who does this at some point needs to do high school sports, in my opinion, because
Mm-hmm.
you got to keep your own stats, your box scores. You have to go get interviews, and you have to work on a very, very hard deadline. And in a lot of ways, I see a lot of these young sports journalists who come up, they get fresh out of college and they get a job on a national beat or something. And I sit there and I'm like jealous, like I had to work 15 years to get here. But everybody has their own different journey. But you could tell them like, hey, I used to do this and that and that. And I go, what? I would have never wanted to do that. And I go, well, you know what? It's beneficial. I said, I even recommend them now. I go, if you can, go see if you can go cover a high school football game on a Friday night for a paper, string it, keep your
Mm-hmm.
stats and all that. It's like good reps. That's how I put it. It's like good practice.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, so you go from there, and finally you get a beat. You're at Mississippi State. Do that for 3 years in Starkville. What's that like? Getting your first beat in a place that you've only been on maybe what game day?
I had never been there before.
Oh, okay.
And I think I drove through it once as a kid. And I remember I interviewed for the job and took the job and I put in a 2 week notice, but I told my employer, which was the Northwest Arkansas Times and Democrat Gazette at the time, I said, can I work 10 days straight instead of 14 days, five, whatever, the
Mm-hmm.
5 and 5? And they said, yeah, go ahead. Cause I wanted to get down there quickly because the football season was about to start anyway. So I got down there on September 10th, which was a Wednesday. And I had the first time I saw Starkville was me pulling in with my U-Haul trailer and towing my Chevy Cavalier, my Chevy Blazer behind it.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was crazy. I unloaded. Luckily, I had a friend there that helped me unload. And very next day was my first day. And the very first game I got to cover was a Thursday night game. Was Mississippi State Auburn. Auburn had a quarterback by the name of Cam Newton, and he had yet to really kind of come onto the scene. But that was the game he really kind of did. It was a close
Yeah.
game. And long story short, I got there, and the previous beat writer covered Mississippi State like took me aside like 2 or 3 days later and goes, "Hey, by the way, I've been working on this big story since about May about Cam Newton and his dad and recruiting and
Wow.
money and all this stuff." And he goes, "So here's what I got. Here's what we need to go work on." I'm like, I'm already in over my head. I don't even know the name of the starting linebacker on this team. How am
Yeah.
I going to go do this story that might, and it ends up becoming the biggest story of the year. And you've got all these national writers literally coming to Starkville like every other day, or in Jackson, Mississippi, chasing people down. I've heard stories about people involved in it throwing a cell phone into the Gulf of Mexico so they
Oh,
can get stuff
jeez.
traced. I mean, it was nuts. And I barely kept my head above water. And so many things happened that year. I mean, Mississippi State actually won 9 games for the first time since like the 98 season or 99 season. They went to a bowl game. Dan Mullen had everything revved up there. He had a very beloved defensive end player die of skin cancer suddenly, like he was playing against Auburn and a month later died. It was just a very, very wild first like 3 or 4 months there on the job.
Man. And then you parlay Mississippi State. You speak of Auburn, and it's been 7 years on the plains. So how is it difficult going from one school to another, especially when they're in the same conference?
No, it's actually pretty easy because you're so familiar with the landscape
Mm-hmm.
anyway, and also some of the players already at Auburn because they had to play each other every year. And I got that job through a connection through someone who used to work in Northwest Arkansas, Izzy Gould, who used to cover the
Mm-hmm.
Razorbacks for the morning news. He was a sports editor for Birmingham News and AL.com. And he called me up and said, would you be interested? And I was like, I don't know. I've only been at Mississippi State for a few years. I feel like I'm just getting into a rhythm and knowing everybody and getting scoops. And, but he convinced me to come over. Plus, the tug at me was like, there's like 3 newspapers I grew up like loving:
Mm-hmm.
Democrat Gazette in Arkansas, the Kansas City Star, and then the Birmingham News. The Birmingham News to me was like the pinnacle of sports reporting in the South. It was the
Mm-hmm.
SEC paper. And so I took it and I spent a few years with AL.com and then went to 24/7 Sports, still covering Auburn. And man, you're familiar with the SEC, but the culture and environment so much different from a place like Mississippi State to Auburn, especially when it's an Iron Bowl rivalry with Alabama. The pressure is heated up. There's more media there. It. I went hardcore on that job. I worked my tail off, and because there were so many other great reporters down there, you were competing every single day. We were all friendly, but man, it was. I mean, I don't think people realize that, like journalists and all that, but we're pretty competitive, especially on the college beats. Like who's getting
Mm-hmm.
scoop, who's getting what, and there was by far maybe the most aggressive I've ever been in my career.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, 2014 Alabama Sports Writer of the Year. It's a great honor, and then 2018 AP National Beat Writer. I mean, you were all over. It was then Twitter, but I mean that's impressive because as you mentioned, I mean that is a very intense
Yeah.
state with Auburn and Alabama. Just how I mean, I'm sure it had to be exhausting. Did you ever have any time out downtime? You couldn't afford
No,
downtime, could you?
couldn't afford it because someone else would get something. I mean, always joke there that news, like I would get my open records request like 8, 9, 10 months later, always on July 3rd or July 4th. Because that was a good place to news dump for them. Here's some bad news that you've uncovered, and so I was always like either at home or if I was on the vacation, I would always go. I have to not do anything until I know it's going to be Passover. But it was intense. I mean, I tell you, just be frank with you. Like I stopped caring about myself, like physically. I gained a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of weight. I uh, I started having panic attacks.
Oh
The
gosh.
longest I took off work was actually a week, and it was because of health. It's because
Mm-hmm.
I had very serious panic attacks that just came out of nowhere. I couldn't even like leave a dark room without like being triggered by something and my heart racing. And my boss at the time, Izzy Gould, who's just a godsend, it was the middle of the football season, just goes, "Hey, take the week off. We're going to pay you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get you some numbers and some help." And they helped me through it. And I remember I missed the Auburn Kentucky game, and uh, Gus Malzahn, who was the head coach there at the time, opened up a press conference at Kentucky. They had won in the last seconds. He's like, "Where's Brandon?" Because he was
Mm-hmm.
so used to seeing me sit on the front row, and he would go to booster events in Tampa and all this stuff, and I would drive 7 hours there and 7 hours back on the same day just so I can get 2 minutes with him, maybe to ask
Mm-hmm.
questions because it was so intense. And that
Yeah.
it obviously wore on me physically.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was quite the awakening, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and I don't know if people understand when you're a beat writer. I mean, you're covering everything, and you're expected to be there. It is a grind because
Yeah,
it's
and it
all
wasn't just
sports.
football. It was all sports. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
football was the money giver, so to speak, but it was everything. And the basketball program at that time was starting to get good.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, the next to last year I was there, they went to the Final Four, and Bruce Pearl like made that like in a daily beat. When as in the past it was like, oh, basketball's having a press conference today. I think I'll skip it. There it was like, oh, they're practicing today. I need to go sit there for 2.5 hours and watch them because Bruce Pearl was like keeping roll call. Like I'm seeing what reporters are showing up here and which ones I'll talk to every day. It was pretty good.
I remember with Bruce Pearl, you did an interview with him in your car. You drove
Mm-hmm.
around campus, and that was really one of the first times I think I'd ever seen anybody interview somebody in a car. How did you come about that, and how was that received?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw that Jerry Seinfeld driving in comedians with cars getting coffee, and I had a GoPro already, and then I was like looking at the equipment, and I spent like maybe an extra $120 to get some mics and set it up, and I just put it all up my car, and I pitched my idea to a few coaches, and they're like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. And I was shocked. So, Bruce Pearl was one of them, and he had some amazing stories. And it was the year before they went to the Final Four, actually. And he told me in the car, he goes, we're gonna get to a Final Four here very soon. And I remember pulling that clip when they made the Final Four because it's like, wow, this is great. And I called it driving planes,
Hmm.
which play on the planesman and all that stuff and airplane whatever. But it did very well, won some awards, and people loved it. And then all of a sudden, I had other coaches and people asking me if they could do it, and I was like, I don't have time anymore
Oh
to do
wow.
it because I was doing it in the off season, and it was like during the year, like, can you come do this in like October or something? I'm like, I can't, man. I am too busy. That's a lot. That's a big workload. But I'm glad people enjoyed it, and I always like doing things where a little bit different. I used to do live. These Periscope was a thing. You can go
Hmm.
live on Twitter or whatever with your phone, and I would leave basketball games and football games and go live as I walked to my car and answer questions and everything as I was walking around. And it was very popular, and I was able to connect with fans in a way that I hadn't in the past because usually fans just email you or call you and say you suck and I hope you die. But then it made them more personable with you, and you kind of understood each other.
That's amazing. And then that parlayed itself in the success there. You become a national reporter, 24/7, and now also with CBS. What's the difference in being a national guy and a beat guy?
Sometimes the access can be easier because, and I always complained as a local guy because it's like these guys, these national guys, they just parachute in and get anything they want. Well, it's not necessarily that. You still have to develop relationships to get that trust. I get turned down more than I do get accepted trying to get things. It's also, you're just trying to check in with as many coaches and staffs as you can every day to see what's going on. And, my phone is just always lit up with text messages. And you're trying to keep up with things. So the workload's about the same. It's just different. You're not driving to places all that often. You're texting and calling and you're just making sure you're keeping your hands on as many things as you can. And it's been a blessing, man, because when I was at 24/7, Shannon Terry, who was running it at the time, called me up to Nashville and pitched this idea to me to help to do national coverage. And I was like beside myself. Like I didn't care what outlet it was, just the idea of like, go be a national college football reporter and pretty much go chase any story you want. That was my dream all along. And I am so forever grateful to him for giving me that opportunity.
Well, you're doing tremendous work, and you're getting to do sidelines now with CBS. Just all the opportunities. I mean, you're on shows, you're on Feinbaum everywhere. I mean, did you have any idea all of that was part of it when you became the national reporter?
I thought it would. I did Feinbaum a lot anyway because he always liked talking
Hmm.
Alabama and Auburn. um, but this industry for the last 15 years has been trending more toward video and podcasts and everything. I remember we launched a podcast in Northwest Arkansas Times back in 2008 or 2009, and you just knew it was going to keep evolving, and you try not to fall behind. So like pretty much any opportunity someone throws at you, as long as it doesn't take away from your main job, I jump at, I'll do it. Like I do podcasts all the times with high school kids that are wanting to get into it. And it, because listen, if someone like that did that for me when I
Mm-hmm.
was in college or high school, I would have been beside myself and it would have motivated me more to do what I wanted to do and chase my dream.
That's awesome. Well, we're running out of time. We didn't even get to the weight loss. Brandon lost 150 pounds. An incredible story. And I'd love to have you back to talk about that because, I mean, that is incredible and inspiring. I think it's inspiring for all of us. As the clock ticks down, I got to ask you at least one college football question. Did we learn anything the last 2 weeks, or is it too early?
It's too early most part, but I'm very worried about Alabama, man. They looked lost and confused and soft on defense, and that's very hard to correct in the middle of the season. That's something that should have been fixed in the offseason. I'm very worried there. Texas, Ohio State, best defenses in the country as of right now. Not much could be gleaned, but I most worry about Alabama.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the time.